Members, if you're ready, just before we start, one or two things I need to do. Just need to apologise to Councillor Gamble for my abruptness at the last meeting. And also Andrew Stock, it's his last committee today. He's leaving the authority, he's going to work for somebody else. Andrew started to work for us on 8th of February 2016, and over 5 years he's done over 1,502 cases. So on behalf of myself and the committee, thank you very much, and I wish you well in your new job. Anyway, moving swiftly on, I'll open up. Apologies, Simon.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Apologies received from Councillor Gary Purdy and also Stuart Lees, and the nominated substitutes are Councillors Andrew Statham and Helen Froggatt.
Right, thank you very much, Simon. Item 2, approval of minutes of the previous meeting. I so move. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. That's carried. Item 3, interests. Councillor Fitzherbert.
5.3, I am a neighbour of the applicant and I feel that it affects our farmers' operations, so I declare a non-pecuniary interest and will exclude myself from the meeting.
Right, thank you very much. Right, anyway, moving swiftly on, I'm going to alter the running order slightly because we've got two applications whose families have got young children. So we'll be moving the application for Worksworth, which is the erection of solar panels, to the first item we'll take, which comes with a listed building consent, and also the item at Horsley Horse Farm, Bradbourne, which is the glamping pods. So we'll start with the application in Worksworth, which is item 5.6. Right, I have got one speaker on this item. You've been here before, Miss McLaren. So your applicant, you have 5 minutes to speak, and I'll indicate when you've got 30 seconds left. Thank you.
Thanks. Good evening, Chairman, planners, councillors. Thanks for allowing me to go first again. Due to having my wee baby to attend to, I really appreciate it again. I'll not repeat myself too much, as you heard from me last time, but I want to recap and highlight some key points since it was the last meeting was 2 months ago now. As you'll remember, this is a listed property in Worksworth, dating 1719, that is being brought back to life after years of falling into disrepair. It is being sensitively restored with traditional techniques and energy efficiency measures. Since the last meeting, the building work has ensured it's now structurally sound, thankfully. The original slate roof has been relaid, and we've had a great local mason repointing it. So there's still a long way to go, but we're getting there. We're taking a whole buildings approach, as recommended by Historic England. The proposed solar panels would work in combination with a ground source heat pump to make the building as carbon neutral as possible, supported by other energy efficiency measures: wall and roof insulation, double and secondary glazing, draft proofing, underfloor heating. We're even having a traditional cold pantry installed instead of a fridge. The solar panels are highly efficient models, slimline panels with a black anti-reflective finish mounted on low black coloured brackets to be as visually unobtrusive as possible. They are reversible and will not cause any physical harm to the building. And this is not a picture-perfect rural setting that these will be in, with only rolling fields and meadows around it where technology would look so distinctly out of place. This is a town centre with traffic lights, telegraph poles, shop signs, bus shelters, neighbouring modern buildings with asbestos roofs, the Memorial Hall side, and the very contemporary looking extension on the Heritage Centre on the other side. So as I highlighted last time, many people see solar panels as positive and progressive additions to this everyday streetscape. But as you highlighted last time, Worksworth is the gem of the peaks and valued for its heritage, so that does need to be taken seriously. Councillor Purdy at the last meeting mentioned the prestigious Architectural Award Worksworth received in the past. This was the Europa Nostra Award for Architectural Conservation, awarded in 1983, given for its exemplary regeneration of a small town through a broad programme of self-help and innovation. Since before applying for these panels, we have been in conversation with many local people to gather views and understand the local perspective, and this award came up in those conversations. A local resident who works in the heritage sector actually mentioned how this award related to our plans, and their comments are included in our design access and heritage statement. They said, "The first thing that struck me was how well your application fits in the recent heritage of Worksworth in terms of the 1983 Europa Nostra Award. It seemed to me that your application is absolutely in line with the principles enacted during that period, and now brings that approach up to date with contemporary technologies and a contemporary understanding of the local and bigger picture of the building's heritage significance, the global challenges the refurbishment must address, and bringing the dilapidated building back to life. So I'm glad there is a sense of supporting that in the room, and I'd like to thank you again for taking this to deferral so that a negotiation could take place with the aim of reaching a positive outcome that satisfies both heritage and climate aims. Councillor Purdy last time stated that he'd hoped that I'd be able to find room to manoeuvre with the planning officer's support. And following the meeting, they were not willing to compromise from their side in order to reach a workable solution, but did allow me to submit the amended drawings for you to decide upon yourselves. These represent a compromise on the amount of panels on one or other of the two roofs, as suggested by Worksworth Civic Society and Councillor Slack. There are two options, A or B, to decide between. Both roofs are optimal for solar panels, south-facing 30 to 35 degrees. The original plans had 14 panels across both roofs. Drawing A shows 5 panels on the higher roof, which is the original slate roof, so more significant in heritage terms. And they'd be closer to the main road, but as they are higher and on a less steep roof, they'd be less visible to the public at street level. Drawing B has 9 panels on the lower clay-tiled roof to the rear of the building, on the more recent part of the building actually, which is not part of the original listing, but attached as a curtilage building. It's a less significant roof and set back further from the main street. And in terms of energy generation, with more panels, this would be our preferred option. These amended plans have gone out to consultation again, and there's been no negative comments again. But there is a massive support behind this, which you're about to hear about next. So I believe it's over to you now, councillors, to make the decision.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So anyway, I'll open it up to the case officer.
Can we lift sound up a bit?
Yeah, of course, do you want me to turn the sound up a bit? Okay.
I'll try not to repeat what's been said, but I'll show you the plans. Obviously, it was deferred from the 13th of July meeting for negotiations with officers to modify the proposal to reduce the harm on the heritage access. So we've got 2 options now. Option 1 is on the higher roof slope, 5 panels. Option B is 9 panels on the lower roof slope. I'll show you some photographs. Both are visible within the public realm. The option A, we think, is prominent from the main street in short distance views, some of it screened by the tree, which I'll show you. It is screened in, when the tree's in leaf, it will be screened from long distance views. And then option B can be seen from longer distances as you enter the village. So we've got to consider the precedent here for solar panels on listed buildings. We've got to consider, weigh up the harm against the benefit of the solar panels. We acknowledge the public benefit in terms of production of renewable energy, but in a weighting exercise, the harm doesn't outweigh that benefit. We consider that both these options, obviously, they offer a reduction in panels, but as both roofs can be seen from within the public domain and wider, we don't, from the public realm, it's a level of harm that we can't support in terms of officer support. So happy to take any questions.
In the there's supposed to be a process of bargaining with the applicant. Did you actually? You don't like whatever the applicants put forward. Did you actually come forward yourself with any suggestions?
Well, the the reduction in roofs was put to us, and that's what we considered, myself and the conservation officer.
Yes, I understand that process. I'm asking you, did you engage in the actual problem in front of you, as it were, in that obviously you knew from the steer that we'd had here that we were looking at solar panels? Did you actually come up with any sort of design yourself that you put to the applicant?
No.
Any more questions, members? Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Option A, 5 panels on the higher roof and 9 panels on the lower roof. That would be 14 panels. It is a reduction to what we were before, isn't it?
It is a reduction, yes.
Yeah,
It's an
so
either-or.
it's more acceptable
Option.
than what 2 years and what was before, actually.
Well, I accept the level of harm has been reduced, but we still consider that level of harm to be significant.
It's a matter of opinion,
Yes.
isn't it, really? What's a greater harm? It's not doing anything or doing something.
Okay, thank you. Councillor John, yeah?
Chair, perhaps a little bit of confusion there. I think the applicant has put 2 options to you to consider, option A and option B. One of those options is to just work with 5 solar panels on the higher roof. The other option is to just work with the 9 solar panels on the lower roof. Just coming back on what Councillor Gamble was getting at before, sometimes when we have negotiations with applicants, there's an easy solution. I think from our perspective here, there isn't an easy solution. There isn't a solution that we can identify that results in a scheme where the harm is outweighed by the benefit, and that's why we've let the applicant put these 2 proposals to committee, because it was your instruction to go away and give them the chance to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Burfoot.
If this committee was minded to approve this application, who would decide whether it's option A or option B? I'm not clear about that.
John, do you want to clarify that?
I think it's for members to consider that. I mean, effectively, you've got 3 ways to go, haven't you, with this application? You can either go with the officer recommendation, which is one of refusal, whichever option you consider, or you can express a preference if you want to support this scheme for either option A or option B, or arguably you've got 4 options. If you're so minded, you could revert to the original proposal and go with all of the panels. Our recommendation remains the same.
Does that answer your question, Sue? Councillor Buttle.
Yes, thank you. Do we have, like, works with Civic Society have kind of gone with option B, which I'm quite happy to support personally. Do we have somebody who can check that we're not getting something nice and shiny as not liked by works with Civic Society? Can we just say, can we give this to an officer to sort out that, yes, these units are okay with works of Civic Society? Am I making myself clear? I'm not making myself clear, am I? Shall I have another go? Right. Works with Civic Society are worried about them being shiny black. They want something lower down, more matte coloured. Can we help? Can we go with what Works with Civic Society are supporting? Like, that's option B, with something not quite so shiny. And can we help them? Can we just go with what they want? And can we provide the service to suit them?
Well, I think in the representations made by the applicant, she gave an assurance that these were non-reflective units. I don't see any reason to, take issue with that. So I think if you are concerned about that point, I think you need to take the applicant on their word that's what's intended here.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Gamble?
Could we just simply condition that?
We could condition that the units that are indicated as part of the application are installed for the purposes of clarity. There's a suggestion there that the non-reflective type, and it could be that they are non-reflective to accord with the submitted material. Yeah, that would be, that for the purpose of clarity, that would be a suitable condition.
Okay, thank you very much. So now I'm going to move into debate. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. This option A and option B are the two. Not to do anything is, in my opinion, not an option. It's a debate between A and B, really. I think not to do anything in this day and age, to turn your back on what's happening in the world would be a disaster. Worcester Town Council, it's put down as no comment, but it's obvious that Worcester Town Council have declared climate emergency, and any development should take place in Worcester should reduce carbon footprint. So obviously they are going for A or B, which should have been stated in the report, really. Civic society speak on one hand that they are supporting renewable energy, on the other hand they're saying they could spoil the special character of the town, listed buildings, so that they've 1 foot in and 1 foot out. So they're neither here or there. It's like Nero when he's watching Rome burn. They don't they'd sit there and let it burn. So I think it's not an option to do nothing. It's not an option. We've got to do things now. I mean, we've seen the world like, it's not affected this country much at the moment. We see Spain, we see Greece, we see west coast of America, we see Australia with fires and destruction all over the world. And to sit here and say that it exposes special character of a town, it is not an option. It spoils the special character of the town in about 30 years' time when all the hurricanes are coming across and we're destroying everything. We've got to act now, and now is the time to act. So I'd like to support option A personally, and I'd like to move option A. But Chair, is it a freeway? You see, you've got a freeway folder here. You've got option A and option B, and then you've got not an option at all. So can we first vote on A and B and then decide between A and B?
Well, being as you've moved option A, we'll see if somebody seconds option A, and we'll see where we go with it, Peter.
Yeah, I'll move option A.
Councillor Burford.
I'm happy to second that for option A. I mean, I agree with what Councillor Sachs said. I think refusal is not one of the options. We've got anti-reflective panels with black edgings. I think we saw those at Dimple Farm near where I live, and the recommendation there, I'm afraid, was for refusal, but you hardly noticed them, to be honest. And after all, visual impact, it's kind of like a subjective thing, isn't it, really? It's a personal opinion almost, and I think there's something in the report that talks about an alien addition. I can't just find it, but I did make a note of that. And some of us don't actually see solar panels as an alien addition. We see them as something to be encouraged and something significant for the future. I think it's also, while I'm talking about significance, I think it's very significant that 90-something residents, most of whom come from Wirksworth, took the trouble to sign a petition. So it's obviously not a problem to the locals. So I'm happy to second Councillor Sachs' proposal.
Can I just clarify?
Yep.
Chair, at this point, that the movers moved option A, which is the 5 panels on the higher roof. Okay, that's fine. Yep.
Councillor
On the higher, just go back. On the higher roof, it's less visible, actually. You've got to really stretch your neck to even see them on the higher roof. You know, and it just has flats and open roof, the higher roof. So, yeah.
Councillor Swindle.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank the applicant for their patience and consideration and working to try and find a amicable solution to this application and for coming back to us. I'm happy with the proposal put forward by Councillor Slack. I have worked in Wirksworth since this application first came, and I went to have a look at the area, the locality and the property. And I agree with what the speaker said. This is a town centre. It's surrounded by metalwork, technology, lights, everything else that looks modern, and has been put there for good use, and solar panels are there for good use. We've announced a climate change emergency, and we need to be progressive and forward thinking as to how we're going to help the residents of the Derbyshire Dales address it. I understand it is a listed building, and these things, solar panels, can be seen to be causing harm, but I've seen far worse examples of solar panels attached to buildings that do look an eyesore. But if these are non-reflective, and they are on the higher roof, which was my preference, which aren't going to be visible without, as Councillor Slack says, with straining your neck, then I'm absolutely happy to go with it, Chair. So again, thanks to the applicant, and I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Archer.
Thank you, Chair. My only issue is that I was personally thinking option B, and I think the applicant preferred option B, and it would give us more renewable energy, and that seems to be what is on our main motivation here. And I also perhaps feel that the colour of the panels would sit better on the lower roof than the higher roof. I take the point about it being more visible overall on the lower roof. So although, I mean, I'm a bit of a dilemma, because I do support the motion to allow some solar panels to be put up. My personal preference, and I think the applicant's preference, and I think the better for the environment preference, was actually option B. And I think with that fitting in better with the colour on the lower roof, that might actually be something we ought to consider. But I presume in order to get to option B, we'd have to vote down option A. It's getting a bit complicated here. And I don't want to vote down option A and then option B not get through and not being able to come back to option A. Does that make any sense at all? I don't know. I'm tried. So yeah, that's just a comment. But yeah, I feel like voting down option A so we've got a chance of option B, but I do want to be able to put something through here. But I don't know where we go on that.
Councillor Fitzherbert.
Chairman, it's obviously a question of balance here, as the officers put. I'd just like to thank the officer for her report. It's fair within the rules that we live in at the moment, and the view of the conservation officer is absolutely fine. This is a conservation area. It is a very important market town on our patch, and that's great. And it's a question of balance whether these panels on either A or B would actually affect what everybody thinks as they walk past doing their shopping or admiring St Mary's, etc. Are they really going to say this is it's a nightmare, it's awful, looking at those panels over there? I really don't think so, and I think it's very difficult on our officers, as they've done exactly as they should. They have recommended it for refusal as the rules that we are. Personally, I felt for a long time, and in my own particular business, that they are wrong, and I've pushed to get them on listed buildings in a national park, which is quite something really. But I appreciate that if we were to have option A or option B, and at the moment we're option B, is it? Sorry? A, sorry. It may cause difficulties in the future for our planning department with appeals and things like that, and they may not be appropriate in some of the other places that we try and protect. Personally, I feel we've got to let these buildings evolve, and personally, I'm going to wait for the debate, but I'm very pro them. I would also like to say that this applicant has been exemplary in her approach to the planning system, whereas elsewhere in these papers, others haven't. And I really think that should be applauded, and I really don't want to diminish the desire and the drive of this particular applicant, because I really think she's been, as I say, exemplary in her approach to the planners and her approach to the engagement of sometimes when we have to make these decisions of balance. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gamble.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in a very similar position to Councillor Archer, in that initially when the first things were brought up, I was thinking B, and I was under the same impression as well that the applicant preferred B. But I'm in a similar thing as Councillor Archer. I don't want to vote down option A and lose option B. I would like her to have one of them, obviously, or even both. But so yes, I don't really know how to go from there in this debate.
Councillor Burfoot.
If Councillor Slack's prepared to withdraw that motion and then
Either of you
repeat it.
will do to withdraw.
Well, I'm prepared to do that.
And
as
you're
the
prepared?
seconder.
Yeah,
Go
same
for
as
option B.
can I come in, Chair?
Yeah, of course you can.
Same as I said at the beginning, it's the only option what's not acceptable is not to do anything at all. Option A or B is quite acceptable, both of them really. It's just a matter of choice which one. Robert's pointed out different things on option B which might be a benefit rather than option A.
So are you wanting to move it for option
I'll withdraw it if Robert wants to
so
move
withdrawing
option
the
B.
original option A, do you want to move option B?
I'll move option B then.
Councillor Burfoot, are you
Yeah,
happy?
yes.
So it's now changed to D, which is the 9 panels on the lower roof. Any more members want to come in and debate? No? In which case then, I move to the vote. So it's... Yep, of course you can, John, yeah.
So what members are voting on. So you're voting to support option B, which is the 9 panels on the lower roof. So we'll need an amended plans condition to reflect that. And also, assuming the mover and seconder want to accept a further condition, Councillor Gamble suggested a condition for clarity on the panels are installed in accordance with the submitted details, which indicate a non-reflective surface to the panels.
Yeah, and could we add a condition for the length of time for them to stay on? Do you think that's appropriate, a 30-year condition?
I think it's probably good practice also to take that into account, because in 30 years' time the world might have moved on in terms of technologies, and the standard life for a solar panel is around 30 years.
So we'll add that as a condition, that the solar panel, the permission remains for 30 years. Okay, so, yep, of course you can. Yeah. Yeah. So are you happy with that? The conditions as set out, yeah? Okay, in which case then we'll go to the vote. So it's moved for approval on option A, which is the 9 panels with the addition of the few conditions.
Option B.
Option B, should I say, sorry. Even I'm getting confused. So option B, 9 panels with the additional conditions. So all those in favour, please show. All those against? Right, so 11 for and 2 against, so it's been passed. Okay, so moving swiftly on to the other bit of this application, which is the listed building consent. So we'll move on to that. I have a number of speakers on this. So the first speaker is Mr. Geoffrey Litherland. He's a local resident who wants to speak in favour of the application. You have 3 minutes. I'll indicate when you have 30 seconds left.
So I'm not sure how longer relevant is because you've passed the motion, but I'll just like to say that I'm just here on the behalf of the people of Wirksworth who have supported this application. And I'm going to read some of the comments out from the petition that we said, which is in the notes. All of these respondents are local residents of Wirksworth. Charlotte Repton, in May 2019, Derbyshire Dales District Council declared a climate emergency. Residents would like to see action on this by supporting people to make green choices that will improve our town, such as this application. Andy Jordan, the town councillor, the proposal fits in with Wirksworth declaration of a climate emergency. Jane Taylor, it is imperative that renewable energy systems are encouraged if we are to tackle climate change. As a transition town, Wirksworth should be leading the way. Carolina Barreca, I work on the market and support this project. Justin Dean, Wirksworth is a town that embraces modern eco-solutions, and this project is an ideal example of that, definitely worth of the planning department's support. Abby Chillingworth, sustainable energy should be a priority when we are in such a climate crisis. If done sympathetically, solar panels would not have a detrimental impact on the character or historical integrity of the town, any more than shop signage or wheelie bins do. You have already approved solar panels in the conservation area North End, so it feels unfair to challenge this. Paul Carr, I've got 42 panels on my 18th century malt house on North End, clearly visible from the street. When people want to do the right thing by the planet and the greater community, they should be lauded and applauded. Georgia Litherland, we must as a society move into the renewable energy, and this project will both help to do that and maintain and further Wirksworth's recent historical identity as a town that both conserves its heritage and invests in a sustainable future. This is the contemporary equivalent of the kind of architectural work that won Wirksworth the European Prize in '83, and it should go ahead. Hazel Robson, as a community, we should be embracing renewables throughout our town, including allowing our older buildings to change and adapt to modern living. So from these passionate comments, you can see that Wirksworth residents support this application and want to see action being taken on the 2019 Derbyshire District Dale Council's Climate Emergency Declaration. Thank you.
Right, the next speaker on my list is Miss Laura Stevens, Dale's Climate Hub, to speak in favour of the application. Similarly, you have 3 minutes. I'll indicate when you have 30 seconds left.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being back here, speaking in front of you, officers and councillors. I'm speaking on behalf of Dale's Climate Hub in support of the applicant, but I kind of a little bit confused because it seems to be passed and then it. So either way, I wrote at the beginning in support of this application, and here we are again speaking up for those who want to do the right and proper thing. So I shan't hark on about the climate emergency or the fact that Derbyshire Dales District Council is one of those councils who has indeed declared the climate emergency, because I shouldn't need to. Those of us who campaign understand that retrofit of these old houses is a very tricky one. Some of these houses, of course, are listed. And in fact, this particular issue formed the basis of a recent meeting some of us held with Sarah Dines MP last month. It is so important that we deal with this. Mostly it's the cost, which scares people, but here you have individuals desperate to do the right thing and prepared to shell out the necessary costs. Air source heat pumps are now technologically advanced and not noisy. Solar panels can be removed. So on the one hand, we have Derbyshire Dales District Council bidding for monies to ensure that social housing is warm and climate friendly, and on the other, making it very hard for people who are prepared to use their own initiative and their own funds to do what is required, to do the right thing. Last time I spoke at a meeting, I spoke in favour of renewables on a listed building, and it was given the go-ahead against officer recommendation. I mean, here the officers are talking about harm being caused, but this is nothing compared to the harm being caused by climate change. I applaud all the comments made this evening in favour of this project, and applaud the applicant in pursuing this project and would urge councillors to approve it, as you have seemingly just done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The last on my speaker again is Miss McLaren. She's the applicant. She has 5 minutes, and I'll indicate when you have 30 seconds left.
I didn't realise I was going to be speaking twice, actually, so I've already said what I'm keen to say.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, in which case then, thank you very much. So anyway, open it up to questions. Wouldn't think there'd be many questions, so I'll move into debate then. Councillor Swindle.
Chair, as we've just previously passed the application for the solar panels, I think it just makes sense to move this for approval.
So I find a seconder. Councillor Buttle. Anybody else want to speak on it?
Chair, can I just clarify with Councillor Swindell that you want the same conditions that were put on the previous scheme in terms of the option B, the non-reflective surface, etc.
Yes.
Amended plans.
Yep. Councillor Slack.
I'm happy to support that, Chair, and I'm very pleased that the council has our district council now is going the right way and going, recognising that we've got a big job in front of us to be carbon free by 2030 and carry on to do other things in renewable energy. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody else wishing to speak in the debate? No? In which case then I'll go to the vote. So it's moved for approval against officer's recommendation with the conditions added to the other application. So all those in favour, please show. All those against? So that's been passed. Thank you very much. So anyway, the second item that we're going to take now is item 5.3, which is the Horsley Farm Bradbourne application. Don't think there's any late reps on this. No. We have a couple of speakers on this. So this is application number 20/01238 for change of use of agricultural land to glamping pod site of 8 units of accommodation at Horsley House Farm, Bradbourne. So I have one speaker, Miss Brewer, who's the applicant. You have 5 minutes to speak, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Thank you. Am I okay to start? Great. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. For those of you that I didn't meet yesterday, my name is Lauren Brewer, and I am the applicant. Horsley House Farm is our family home. It's a Grade 2 star listed farmhouse in a beautiful Derbyshire valley, and you will see from the officer's report that this poses a number of challenges, but it is also the reason we love the property and we want to share it with others. I'm not going to address all the matters raised in the report, but I would like to pick out 2. The impact of our proposal on the heritage asset, our home, and access. So regarding the listed building, I would like to reassure you all that we hope to protect, restore and invest in the property, breathing life into it as a family home and business. It is our dream and long-term vision to offer glamping specifically for other families. And we know that this kind of high-quality alternative holiday accommodation is not only a rapidly growing sector, but actually lacking within the Derbyshire Dales. The site has largely been under-maintained for 30 years, and otherwise the land would be grazed, providing little ecological or economic benefit to the area. We believe our plans are sensitive to the property, considerate to the environment and ecology, and actually serve to give others access to a heritage asset while generating income for the area. Around £152 value per night to the local economy for an overnight stay, according to Tourism England, and at least 2 job opportunities for members of the local community. On the second matter of access, I will briefly talk about visibility and remoteness. We recognise that the existing visibility splay is not adequate. As landowners, it is our responsibility to our family and other road users to improve that regardless. We are lucky to own the land on both sides of the road, in both directions, and are confident we can achieve the required distances, as referenced in our independent traffic survey, by managing our hedgerows as neighbours do. We will compensate for any lost habitat by replanting elsewhere on the site as part of our wider ambition to increase the ecological value of the site from low-medium to medium-high, as stated in our application. On the point about being a remote location, it is this rural setting that is the appeal to visitors. As you will see from the representations, we have good relationships with our neighbours, and the public network of footpaths is easily reached across neighbouring fields. Just a few minutes' ride from the property at Tissington Ford, you are also able to pick up the National Cycle Route 547, which connects the Tissington and High Peak trails. And the council-funded Derbyshire Connect bus service can provide our guests with a door-to-door alternative to car travel between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. In summary, we want to build something for the long term, developed sustainably, in phases over a number of years, which will create new jobs and have a significant contribution to the local economy, which helps restore the nature and ecology of this important site and allows us to share the beauty and history of Horsley House Farm with families for years to come. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So, Sarah, over to you.
Okay. Obviously, we visited the site yesterday, and it's over a wide area on quite sloping land, so we tried to sort of get points where we could view all the aspects of it. How do you point that? I'll try and point them out just briefly. Obviously, that's the yurt that's proposed in that coppice, a replacement pigeon loft. We've got the burrow in that location there, a storage barn in association with it. Then we've got the tree house in that location, Shepherd's Hut. The new car parking area is in that location. And then we've got the 3 tents on the other side of the road. And the access to the property is up that steep driveway there. Okay. So in terms of sustainability, it's considered that the creation of this new build holiday accommodation in this otherwise remote and isolated location in the countryside, where visitors are most likely to depend on their own private car to visit the site, amounts to an unsustainable form of development which does not promote sustainable rural tourism. Horsley House Farm is a Grade 2 star listed building, which is a highly graded farmhouse that retains a historic unit of land that forms its setting and context. Setting is the surroundings in which the heritage asset is experienced. And within any assessment, the implication of the impact of change within that setting has to be considered. The southern field, which is where the car park is proposed, is considered to be an important contributory element of the setting of the Grade 2 star farmhouse, with the farmhouse located there, the car park there. It's important in the experience of an approach to this highly graded heritage asset. Historic England consider that the substantial scale of the proposed structures and the dispersed siting, together with the interconnecting paths and car parking, would likely to be result in a high degree of impact on the rural countryside setting and significance of this highly graded farmhouse. Peat Park are concerned about the impact on the national park in terms of the safari tents, because the boundary of the national park is very close. It runs sort of in that area. It's felt that the introduction of cars in that location on a higher sort of land level to the road would present an intrusion in the landscape visible within the valued landscape of the national park. It's the substantial scale and the sort of decking areas, the pathways, the permanency of the structures, with only the yurt being taken down in the winter months, is what we consider to be harmful to the setting of the listed building. Obviously, the applicant mentioned the implication to the hedgerow in order to get the required visibility displays as well, which is a significant impact in terms of 140 metres of hedgerow that needs to be lowered or set back. And then obviously we have got a reason for refusal in terms of the lack of information on impact on trees. Happy to take any questions.
Over to Councillor Burford.
That the officers are recommending refusal is it talks about the degree of permanency of the accommodation. Could you tell me which of the structures would be difficult to remove and which would be easily removed if that needed to happen? That's the first question. Do you want the next one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's concern about these safari tents that the National Park have highlighted. So they're suggesting, it would seem, that they need to be, could they be on the east side of the road where they'd be less prominent and less intrusive? So has the applicant had this suggestion asked of them? Has that been put to the applicant?
Shall I answer? Yeah, okay. First one, obviously the degree of permanency of all the structures is that really it's only the yurt that would be removed in the winter months. The rest would stay all throughout the year. If I should just show you some, obviously that's the burrow. That was the yurt. That one will be taken down in the winter months. That's the pigeon loft. They are structures that are substantial and will be there in the landscape throughout the year. In terms of the tents, that's the picture of the tents. No is the answer. We haven't requested that they be amended or removed because really it's the whole, you know, the principle of the development isn't acceptable in terms of other issues, in terms of the heritage asset, the sustainability. So we haven't sought to negotiate change to the location of the tents.
Answer your questions, Councillor Burton.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Buttle.
Historic England mentioned a scheduled monument. Which scheduled monument? I didn't see one. In section 5.7, the last paragraph.
I mention it in the description of at the beginning of the report. I describe what the scheduled monument is in item 2.1.2. It's a medieval settlement, including a fish pond and open field system, immediately north and 240 metres south of Lee Cottage Farm.
I'm very sorry about that. I should have read it more closely.
Okay. Councillor Gamble.
Hi, thank you. So one of your points earlier, you raised that this was an unsustainable form of tourism due to the fact that people would have to go by cars. Are you telling me that all our holiday accommodation in Derbyshire Dales is accessible by bus and by public transport, and that nobody currently goes to holiday accommodation in their car? And I wonder, do you give me a little bit more sort of clarification as to what is actually creating the harm here? Is it the sight of cars within a Grade 2 listed farmhouse? Is it the fact that you can just see something that's modern? And if you could just explain to me, say, how much more harm that would create to be able to see a car from a Grade 2 listed building, from, say, to be able to see a very modern piece of farming equipment, for instance, as this is a farming setting. I mean, would you be very upset if a carbon harvester was parked there? Not that given the decking, you could get it up there, but I'm struggling to really see what you're actually assessing the harm as. Is it the fact that we can see this holiday accommodation? So do we have no other holiday accommodation within a Grade 2 listed setting in the Dales? Would this be precedent?
Start on those, Sarah.
Sorry.
And then you can think about the answers to the others. In terms of, do we guarantee that people come to the Dales and never use the car to access holiday accommodation? Of course we don't. You know, there are lots of properties within the Dales and the Dales villages and existing sites where we can't exercise any control over people using the car to come to the Dales. but we have a duty in terms of trying to help to tackle climate change, amongst other things, to try and encourage holiday accommodation where people have the option of coming to those facilities by means other than the private car. That's the agenda here, and this development needs planning permission, and that's why we apply the policies in the local plan.
Okay. I was in my discussion earlier, in my presentation, really I'm trying to get at the fact the permanency of these structures, what comes with them in terms of the decking areas, which are quite substantial, all the pathways throughout the land. You know, it's a combination of all those factors. It's not just the car park, it's the whole scheme and its impact on that setting, the change within that setting that we consider as harmful.
So, sorry, do you the safari tents, do you consider those permanent? They are made of canvas. I know you haven't asked them to put to the applicant the idea that they take them down, but presumably they actually could be taken down if required.
They're quite substantial structures built on a wooden deck.
So's a yurt.
It's not, in all the information I've been given, they're not proposed to be taken down. They're there permanently and they would have an impact on the national park and that valued landscape, and that has been picked up by the National Park Authority.
So I'm finding that strange as well, the comments for the National Park. Obviously, I live in the National Park. We have huge campsites of 200 more that are visible from miles around, which don't seem to cause a problem. So I'm slightly taken aback as to why these glamping pods that, you know, when we saw the site, they are going to be sensitively placed. They are going to be, I mean, let's face it, you're driving past at 50 miles an hour, this site. How many of those you'd actually be, anyone would be able to even count when they went out? It's sort of, do you seriously think that people are going to see that much at 50 miles an hour?
I certainly think there will be more visible with the removal of the hedge, and they won't be taken down, they will be there all year.
Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. This actually is outside the National Park, isn't it? Just outside?
Yes.
But, you know, I've seen this argument before about when the National Park seems to want to say, a few years ago, the National Park on a wind turbine project where then they said, oh, we can see the wind turbines out of the National Park. Well, obviously you can. And, but how far do you take this? The National Park's got its own area. Should they infringe on another area and tell them what to do? Really? Well, I mean, you've got to have this is a new idea. I don't think it's an idea which is harmful, personally. But just I do feel that the National Park have a greater say in what they should have in our area.
Well, the National Park Authority are a statutory consultee on this particular application because of the proximity to the park. So they have a right to express a view as to how the development is going to impinge on their statutory duty to protect the park and its setting, and that's what they're commenting on. Members have to then interpret those comments and give them weight.
Does that answer your question, Peter?
No, it's
not really, but
it's
anyway.
Just set that.
Anyway, in which case then we'll move into debate. Councillor Barefoot.
Starting.
Sorry, first on my list.
I was waiting for somebody else to put their hand on.
You shouldn't be so quick, sir.
Can I preface this by saying that, you know, can't remember who said it now, but, you know, we as members do appreciate, honestly, that officers have to give their professional view. But we as members have to give our considered view. And sometimes we don't agree. And in my view tonight, on this one as well. I'm afraid I don't agree. I welcome this as an exciting addition to the tourist industry. I think it'll be really popular. And if I look through the reasons for refusal, I can't accept number 1 and number 3. In terms of refusing it, and as I say, this is the officers giving us their benefit, the benefit of their professionalism, and that they are telling us what the policies say. But, not being served by public transport, I mean, let's get real about it. I've said this before about another application, I can't remember where it was. Is anybody going to be trudging to this place on a bus, even if the bus is 2 miles away, carrying all their baggage for a week's holiday? Of course they're not. Now, I know what the officers would say to that. Well, we don't want it in the first place. But, we've got to encourage tourist opportunities. We want to get tourists into our area, and this seems to be a good opportunity, and I do welcome it. The other thing that I'm struggling with is the problem with the visual intrusion of the car park. Now, how many cars are likely to be there? I don't know, 10, 12-ish. So I can't resist saying that what about the car parks at Chatsworth Hall? They're highly visible and they're in the Peak Park. What about Haddon Hall on the A6? No screening, totally visible. If you're going to have a tourist attraction, you're going to have cars, and we're not talking a huge number of cars here. And yes, probably it will be visible, but no more visible than some of these other iconic tourist attractions that we've already got. So, yes, I'll finish at that.
Thank you, Councillor Burfoot. Councillor Slack.
Yeah, Councillor Burfoot's dropped on some very good points. I think we've got to encourage tourism in lots of different forms. And this is not a bad form, really. It's keeping people very rural, and it's keeping people away from the natural habitat of the cities and that, coming out into the countryside and enjoying the countryside. So, yeah, we've got to look at this again really differently. I think we're looking at it very old-fashioned and saying, oh, we'll never do that, we'll never do that. If we do that, we won't progress. The tourism will never progress in this area. We need to encourage different form of tourism to come into our area. So, yes, there's some points which might be difficult. The car park could be screened by trees. I did say on the site visit that trees could be planted all the way around the car park and it could be shielded. So I don't see a problem really with that. So I'm not too sure if officers have got this right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Donnelly.
As one of the members who visited the farm yesterday, when I got there, I was quite surprised by the spread out of the actual the units, and some I would agree with at the back of the farm, but the others are very, very visible on the Bentley Road. I think probably the best thing we could do tonight for the applicant is to refuse it as it is at the moment, and then let the applicant come back with a more modest application, which we could modify, because, I mean, I forget how many units, there were quite a few units, isn't there? How many units was it? 8. Right, and they are very big units, and as I agree with Sarah saying that it's just not the units that take up the space, it's the roads and everything else into it. Where your car park is, and it would take a long time, I think, to put trees there or hedge there to shield the car park. It is a very busy road. That's the only thing under consideration. Which, for traffic, now if you've got a bus service that I don't think it's much along there at all, but it should be, then it would be a different thing. But that would be my advice to actually, I will move off to a recommendation tonight on this for refusal. and to enable the applicant to come back with a more modest plan. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
So you've moved it for refusal, have you, Tom? You've moved
Yeah.
it? Yeah, okay.
So the applicant come back with a more modest plan, probably. Yeah.
So I find a seconder. Councillor Buttle?
I think it does need to be refused. It's a historic setting. It's been there hundreds of years. Sticking stuff down all around it, I think it's going to really change it fairly solidly for the future. And we're not going to stay as a tourist destination if we turn it into some sort of holiday camp. So I think that Tom's absolutely right. I think we should refuse this, and we should allow them to come back with something that's just a little bit less intrusive. And I support the Peak District National Park as well. I think they need to, like, if they're right about it, they have a view, we should respect it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gamble?
I'm afraid I'm more on the side with Councillor Burford and Councillor Slack, I think. I don't think 8 glamping pods is a huge development. If you'd seen some of the tourist to sites we have in the Peak District, I mean, this is minuscule to the roughly 200 to 300 people I have in a small hamlet of 50 houses on a regular basis. I mean, this really just doesn't even cut it as a large housing, as a large holiday development. And also, this is the sort of holiday experience we as a council have said and made large proclamations around that we actually want to encourage, i.e. high value tourism. The applicant on the day did say that they were intending anyway to screen the car park. So I think, and to say that, oh, we can't allow something because trees take a long time to grow, well, that would apply to any screening scheme that was ever in place on any planning application that ever came before this committee. So I don't think, I'm sorry, I really don't think that's an argument. And I think we should be supporting it.
Councillor Archer?
Just to say, really, I've got a lot of respect for everybody that's spoken. I sort of agree with everybody's opinions. I agree to an extent with what Tom said. I agree also to an extent to what Sue said as well. One thing I just want to get on record, I'm finding this very frustrating as somebody with a full-time job. The way that site visits work now, I just can't get to site visits. And I think this is one that I'm going to find it very difficult to vote on because of the nature of the timing of site visits that now take place all day on a Monday. So I'm probably going to have to abstain because I just feel I can't really make a decision without having seen and been on the site visit. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Councillor Swindle?
Thank you, Chair. Similar point to Councillor Archer. I work Mondays full-time. I can't get to the site visits. So when something isn't somewhere where I can view in my own time or it isn't a crystal clean-cut decision, I have to abstain. Just to make the point that I think I have listened to the debate and I have 1 minute swayed in favour of the applicant and the next for refusal. But I don't think anybody's against glamping. I mean, I think it's great. But I don't think anybody is against bringing tourism to the area. I think, as the officers have said, it's the setting that it is in. I've recently visited the Lake District. I stayed in a lodge, but if it wasn't for a sign and a sat-nav, I wouldn't have found the site because it is dipped down into a valley, and most of the sites, the glamping sites, the lodges, the caravan sites, whatever, you cannot see from the roadside, and they are very, very careful at protecting their scenic views and their park, and I think that's what the Peak Park and the officers are trying to do here. So I fully understand the business case for it, and I would love to see this sort of thing more in the Derbyshire Dales, but I don't feel it is the right area. But because I've not seen it for myself, I really, really don't think I can give an honest, balanced opinion. So I will, as much as I hate to abstain, I've got to. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Donnelly. I think we've got to allow the applicant to rejig this application.
Okay, thank you very much. There's nobody else down to speak, so it's been moved and seconded for refusal. All those in favour, please show. All those against? And abstentions? So it's been passed for refusal. Thank you very much. So going back to the committee papers, item 5.1. Yeah, I think Tommy's gonna to go and get him, hopefully. There is some late representation on item 5.1, so I'll let you read through the late representation before we move on and go to the speakers. Has everybody read that? Yep. Okay then. So this is item 5.1, application number 21/00456, demolition and garage and associated buildings and erection of 37 affordable housing dwelling houses at Dove Service Station Garage, Mayfield Road, Ashbourne. So I have got 4 speakers on this. There's a bit of a change from the list, so I think Claire Houston, the first speaker, and to speak against the application. You have 3 minutes, and I'll indicate when you have 30 seconds left.
Good evening, and thank you for letting me speak today. I'm speaking on behalf of the residents of 30 to 38 Mayfield Road. Our issues mainly are the retaining boundary wall adjacent to 30 Mayfield Road. Mr Brassington of the Dove Service Station has now removed the boundary wall of 18 years plus that is on the planning application. We have had correspondence with Mr Andrew Stock, and he's spoken to Mr Brassington about the issue and advised that he ceases works immediately. Unfortunately, Mr Brassington has not followed the local planning authority's advice. I think this does form part of the consideration of the current live application, as it is a boundary wall on the planning application. We have considered the updated plans, but only we would like no objections at all, but only under the circumstances that the retaining wall is replaced before any further work is carried out and subject to any approval. We have land registry deeds showing the boundary wall. Mr Stock can confirm the attached plans relates to the application site boundary as an email on the 8th of September. And with the updated plans, we've been informed that the applicant's agent has also confirmed that existing boundary wall and fence on the top to the rear of plots 30 to 34 will be retained. Unfortunately, we have no alternative, as this is a shared driveway for the residences of 30 to 38 Mayfield Road, but we will have to take Dove Service Stations to court over the issue of the retaining wall relating to the application. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
The next on my list to speak is Miss Isabel Coggins, who used to work for us, used to be friends beforehand. So welcome back, Isabel. You have 3 minutes to speak. I'll indicate when you have 30 seconds left.
Thank you very much. Many thanks for the opportunity to speak this evening in support of the Dove Garage application. So my name is Isabel Coggins and I'm here representing Nottingham Community Housing Association. And we've been working with the developer MyPad to bring this proposal forward. The proposal is for a 100% affordable scheme of 37 homes for rent and shared ownership with a mix of property types, which will be owned and managed by Nottingham Community Housing Association. The scheme has been developed in close consultation with planners and housing and ward members to meet local need and deliver on Derbyshire Dales District Council's important green agenda. Funding has been secured from Homes England, with District Council funding also ensuring the delivery of a scheme which does not use gas, uses timber frame, and meets EPC rating A through the use of fabric first approach, including super insulation and the addition of solar panels and air source heat pumps. I believe that this is the most energy efficient scheme that will have been delivered in Derbyshire Dales through the District Council's partnership with a housing association. It is a significant achievement to bring forward a 100% affordable scheme of 37 homes on a former garage site, where each home will have an A-rated energy performance certificate and which is solely funded by NCHA borrowing and public subsidy. The homes for rent would be advertised and let through the Council's choice-based letting system called Home Options. This is a fabulous opportunity to deliver much-needed affordable homes in a central location in Ashbourne, close to a wide range of local facilities on a rather unsightly brownfield site, which would greatly enhance this part of town. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Isabel, and nice to see you again. The next on my list is Mr. Jeremy Mason. He's our own rural housing enabler. You have 3 minutes. I'll indicate when you've got 30 seconds left.
Application. I'd like to address two aspects of it. The first is the question of housing need. As most of us are aware, housing need across the whole district, including in Ashbourne, of course, is well documented. The very latest data, which I got today from the Housing Register, shows that there are 141 applicants on our housing register who either live in Ashbourne or claim a local connection to it, households in need of new affordable housing. The bedroom need of these applicants varies between needing a one-bedroom property to a five-bedroom property. So the housing units proposed here, 37 dwellings, comprise one-bed, two-bed and three-bed properties. So they do match the profile very well of need identified in our housing register. 20 of them will be available at affordable rent and 17 for shared ownership. So we have a mixed tenure offer there as well. These new dwellings will help to effectively address need in Ashbourne and provide affordable homes for households on the register. The second element relates to the design and build quality. Now, Isabel's provided some information on that, and I think there may be more to come. But I noted the following. The units are without any gas. They're built to modern methods of construction with extremely high levels of thermal efficiency, EPC rating A, as Isabel mentioned. They have solar panels, air source heat pumps, energy efficient appliances and water saving features. The overall scheme and layout is an aesthetically pleasing design which blends with and complements the local vernacular and enhances biodiversity. So in conclusion, I would say that the Housing Department at DDDC is fully supportive of this development. Furthermore, it's a DDDC corporate priority to increase the supply of affordable housing. This high-quality, eco-friendly scheme delivers against that priority. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last of my list is Miss Jenny Bays, who's the agent for PRB Architects. You have 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to talk today. My name's Jenny from PRB Architects, and we're speaking on behalf of our client. The vision for the development is to deliver much needed affordable housing, as my colleagues have mentioned before me. and this will consist of 1, 2 and 3 bed dwellings, which will reference the local vernacular and promote sustainability. Overall, the design approach has been to create 2-storey dwellings similar in scale and massing to those along Mayfield Road. The design proposals offer opportunity to improve the general street frontage of the site and to provide a more suitable solution for the gateway into Ashbourne Conservation Area. The design proposals draw influence from the adjacent Victorian terraces. The properties along Mayfield Road and main access road into the site follow the terrace form with minimal frontages. Feature brickwork panels are also proposed on principal and predominant elevations to add variation and simple detailing to the scheme. Additionally, there's brick detailing proposed at eaves as well. The red line boundary of the site is not subject to any title disputes. Given the central location of the site and the tenure type, each dwelling is provided with a minimum of 1 allocated parking space, with the larger properties having 2 allocated. Visitor spaces are distributed across the scheme, providing an overall total of 51 spaces. The number of vehicle movements into and out of the site is proposed to be less than that of its current use. The street design also allows for footways for pedestrians and cyclists to safe access through the development. The new homes will meet the Homes England affordable housing funding requirements in terms of their space standards and specification and the employer's requirements of the registered provider, Nottingham Community Housing. It is proposed that the construction hours for the site will be limited to from 7:30 till 4:30 Monday to Friday unless prior arrangement has been sought from the council. It is currently envisaged that all the properties will be built using open panel timber frame solution to comply with Homes England modern methods of construction agenda. And as such, they will be capable of achieving high levels of insulation. It's also proposed to use air source heat pumps and photovoltaics to remove gas and focus on the district's green agenda. All dwellings will be fitted with energy efficient appliances and water saving features. The site benefits from a strongly landscaped boundaries which are existing, and we propose to retain these and reinforce them. The south part of the site is prone to flooding, and therefore it's been proposed that the housing development sits on a plateau. Complex flood modelling has been undertaken to ensure that this is of no detriment to the surrounding area. Where the flood zone has been left so that there is no development there, it is proposed to create a new multifunctional space, the new Henmore Mini Park, which would not only be a sustainable wetland to attenuate the stormwater, but also a space for recreation with interlinked paths and an informal natural children's play area. Habitats for bats and birds are proposed to be enhanced with any arisings to be retained on site and logged up and strategically placed for designated new habitat areas. As part of the application, a biodiversity matrix has been prepared which shows a net biodiversity gain of approximately 8%. To conclude, the design proposals seek permission for a high-quality housing development that is sustainable, safe and attractive with a sense of place to meet an established housing need within Ashbourne. Thank you.
Right. Moving on. Andrew.
Coming back on the point raised by Mrs Horton in relation to the boundary treatment, in particular the retaining wall. Members who visited the site yesterday would see that the retaining wall has been removed previous to the application being determined. But just to clarify, that parcel of land doesn't form the basis of this application. Notwithstanding that, there is a condition included, number 7, as part of the recommendation to require details of any retaining walls going forward should the application be approved. I'll take questions.
Questions, members? Councillor Bull?
Yes, thank you. It was more just to clarify with
Officer Stock, Andrew Stock, to this business with the boundary. When this application went in, I was contacted by members, and particularly Mrs. Woolley, who lives right next door to the entrance on the right-hand side as you face it, stipulating about how it was originally planned, and it was showing the route of the red line of where she felt that, and looking how it looked, that one of the houses that was there, she come out of her back door, she would be entering the other person's back door, and it was that was led. Now, I do believe that Andrew has been in touch with her, and I think it has come down to this civil issue, but I have been led to believe that this plan will not put houses literally on a land bit that really we don't believe is feasible. Can he just clarify that, please?
Yeah, happy to confirm. I think there was some confusion initially with the site location plan that was submitted, which does cross over into the adjacent land, which is a dispute between adjoining landowners. The applicants provided relevant land registry details to confirm that that parcel of land is in their ownership, but notwithstanding that, that parcel of land doesn't form part of this application. In particular, it's this area of land just to the west of the site. But just to clarify, that doesn't form part of the application site in terms of the overall development.
Okay. Councillor Archer.
Thank you, Chair. So I think I may have not quite got this. I want to double check this issue with the wall, having heard the speaker tonight. So what we're saying is wouldn't be possible to put a condition on to put that wall back. That couldn't be something we could do. I've got a couple of other questions. Do you want to do them one at a time? Or?
Yeah, I think that'd be better. Yeah, we can't impose a condition if it doesn't form part of the application site itself. However, there is a condition which does require retaining walls. I think it's set maybe a metre and a half from where the dispute lies. So there will be some retaining structure or at least a boundary treatment to be required in that area regardless.
So it wouldn't be rebuilt where it was, but a wall will be built.
Yeah, some form of boundary treatment will be
close to it.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, right, thank you. In terms of, I think the biggest issue for me on this site, I mean, so there's so many positives about this development. I really want to get behind it, and for lots of reasons. But a couple of questions about concerns. I mean, the parking and the traffic in that part of town is a bit of a nightmare and is very tricky. So can we just clarify what travel plans, if any, have been carried out here, and how have they been monitored? Have we been monitoring travel plans in terms of the impact on traffic in the area? And in the professional opinion of the officers, is the proposed number of parking spaces going to be enough? Because what we do not want is parking spilling over onto this road, because it's a nightmare as it is. So I just want to hear the professional opinion on whether or not they feel this is enough parking spaces to prevent overspill onto the road.
Again, we can't, I suppose, speculate on terms of a number of vehicles going to and from the site, but what we have done and have considered is a submitted travel plan as part of the application. That's been independently assessed by the local highway authority at the county council, and they've concluded that sufficient information, adequate parking and manoeuvring within the site is acceptable for them to raise no objection to this proposal, so they're satisfied in that regard.
Okay. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a great development. It's something we've been looking for a long while. But my question is, the deep bore meat pumps and the solar panels, what percentage of heating is that? Will it do 50% or more, Andrew?
Unfortunately, I don't know that figure, but I can assure you that every property does include both the solar panels and air source heat pumps. So I'm sure that would significantly reduce the overall bills associated with that, but unfortunately I don't have that figure to hand.
Okay.
Councillor Gamble.
Hi. Actually, on sort of related to the subject of bills, it's the final response from Highways, where they say it is disappointing that the revised details do not show amendments to the footway to be 2 metres. Whilst obviously they say it's not an objection, but they do say it may result in the Highway Authority refusing to adopt the proposal, which means in which case the development would remain private. Can I just ask, should that happen and it not be adopted by the Highway, who will be responsible for maintaining that roadway?
The responsibility would be to the owners of the properties. There are conditions attached to the application which would require a legal and funding mechanism to ensure the upkeep of street furniture, tarmacking and the surrounding landscape as part of that. There's still an opportunity for the applicant to amend the internal access as part of conditions attached to the approval should they want to meet the relevant criteria to ensure that the road is adopted. So that is still an option, but as currently presented, that isn't what's put forward to this evening.
Well, do you think we should make, I'm just thinking, you know, this has been touted as an affordable development for people who need an affordable home, who might be then landed with a bill for maintaining the roadways.
Yeah, I think that's something that we need to consider. Again, there's an option for the developer to come forward and suggest that. So there's opportunities to resolve that through the attached conditions on the application.
I think I would certainly like that as a condition that they do that. Because yes. I think it's unreasonable to put a bill to people who are in affordable housing for maintaining the highway structure.
That is interlinked, I say, with the conditions set out. I'm just trying to find a specific condition in which it relates.
Is it which? I did see one, but it did say that a management plan was put in place. It didn't really say who paid for it.
Yes, there's conditions 18 and 19 which can require further information in relation to the internal layouts of the proposed development. So, again, any consideration of accesses would be considered under section 278 works relating to the county council.
Oh, sorry. Right, and then the other question, it's a very small thing, but on 13, dealing with the surface runoff from the site, it says that approved system operating to satisfaction of the local planning authority before commencement of works. Will that include consideration of the wildlife that's in the brook, if any site runoff is going to go into the brook?
Yeah, there is a construction ecological management plan which is conditioned as part of the application. I don't know the condition off the top of my head, but I can just quickly look through to confirm that. That was being assessed again by Derbyshire Wildlife Trust, and they're satisfied that would be mitigate any potential harm on protected species in the area. That's what I'm thinking.
It did say there's a presence of water voles and things.
Yes, that's condition 10 that relates to.
So will that be part of the local planning authority decision to make sure there's no adverse impact on any wildlife in that brook?
Most definitely, yeah. We would consult and liaise with the Derbyshire Wildlife Trust with any information that's submitted, and that would be considered through the discharge conditions
Brilliant,
process.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Councillor Burfield.
Can I also refer to the Derbyshire County Council Highways comments? So, on the initial comments, they say that the footways need to be 2 metres in width rather than 1.8. Do we know why they can't be 2 metres, which would seem to solve the problem of the development not being adopted? Also, in those initial comments, it says the refuge vehicle swept path at the end of the road adjacent plot 18 has not been shown. So, has it now been shown? There's no turning head adjacent to plot 18/19, and this would result in reversing manoeuvres back down the road. That presumably would apply also to HGV, the bin lorries, basically. I'm very concerned about this 2 metre width that the County Council seem to request, otherwise they're not going to adopt it, but I'll speak about that later. But do we know why these footways can't be 2 metres wide?
No comments been received, as far as I'm aware, from the applicant suggesting why they can't accommodate the 2 metre wide footpath. But just in terms of the initial concerns raised by the local highway authority, they have all since been addressed, and they conclude that no objection is raised by the County Council Highways Department subject to conditions. They are satisfied that the relevant access, manoeuvring, pedestrian is adequate for their perspective to raise no objection. It's just the concern of whether or not the highways could be adopted is the only issue in this regard.
It seems to be quite a crucial one, actually. I will speak about that later in the debate, but that's a crucial issue.
Yeah, not all developments in terms of internal layout are adopted. Again, there's opportunities where there can be legal and funding mechanisms put forward to raised no objection from the County Council Highways Department, so yeah, it's not uncommon. Obviously, we're presenting the application as an unadopted road at present.
Okay. Okay.
You say it's not unusual. Do we have other local affordable sites that are have privately managed roads?
I'm not aware of any 100% affordable sites in the Derbyshire Dales, but there are a number of private sites which do have unadopted roads.
Okay. Right, we're going to move into debate. Councillor Fitzherbert.
This site has been going on for quite a long time. If you look at the history in the officer's report, and thank you for a very thorough report again, this has been going on, 16 years now. And it is really, from my knowledge of Ashbourne and loving the town as I do, we really do need to clear up this site now. And, we've had various other schemes approved and they haven't gone through, other ones withdrawn, not approved. I appreciate, my colleagues' concerns about water runoff and roads and things, but I think the overall thing, I think that can all be met with the conditions that the officers have put in their thorough report. And I'd like to move officers' recommendation for approval, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fitzherbert. Councillor Donnelly.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Now, speaking as one of the ward members for the area, I'm delighted this has come to Ashbourne. I think it's very much needed, and like Councillor Fitzherbert said, over the time that this has been going on, this is the best scheme that's come to this area for a long, long time. So for that reason, I'm very happy to second the application, and I wish the developers every success with it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Butler.
If I remember right, our net biodiversity grid includes bird boxes, and Ashbourne has a fantastic collection of swifts. So I was wondering if maybe we could specify that half the bird boxes are going to be swift boxes. Could we do that?
Sure.
Excellent.
Well, obviously, we've got a nod from the developer, so anyway, Councillor Slack.
Yes, Councillor Fitzherbert has said this has been on the go a long time. We've been there several times with different schemes, etc. I think this is the best scheme what's come forward so far. I think it's really a good scheme, and it could be a blueprint for a lot more developments of this type. I love to see the solar panels and the deep bore heat pumps in action, and I'm pleased now the Environment Agency has cleared it. Because I had concerns about flooding on the lower parts, but now they've cleared that. It's been cleared. So, yes, it's a great development, and congratulations to all the people that's been involved in, Rob, and all the people that's been involved in. So, thank you, and I support it.
Tom, did you want to come back on something?
Yes, just very briefly, I also believe there were good chimneys as well on this one. Am I right?
Of houses mainly on the street frontage do have chimneys just across the ridge lines there, yes. On the street side.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay. Robert Archer.
Thank you, Chair. I want to reiterate a lot of the comments that people have said. It is a great scheme. It is a site that needs developing. The affordable housing element is excellent, and I would really 100% like to support it. I just do have a nagging doubt about this highways issue, though. Is there any way we can firm up the conditions to ensure that highways will adopt it? I know we've got conditions 17 and 18 that you referred to. Are we confident conditions 17 and 18 will lead to highways adopting it? Because it would just, there's something slightly, it doesn't sit quite right to think you could be lumbering people in affordable housing with I think one of the councillors mentioned it, with bills for maintaining their highways. So although I'm 100% behind this in principle completely, it's a fantastic proposal. I've just got that one nagging doubt. Is there any way we can clear that up with firmer conditions or something to ensure that highways will adopt?
John.
Can I come back on that? I don't think it's reasonable to impose a condition on this planning application to require the adoption of the highways. However, the developer is listening to what a number of members have had to say on this issue, and the Highway Authority will be keen to adopt, and I think you've just got to rely on the fact that hopefully that message gets across and every effort is made to reach adoptable standards with this scheme.
Okay. Councillor Ball.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, like all the other colleagues, it is a wonderful development from everything else that has been offered to be put on this site. And again, the two issues as regards the adoption of the area of inroads within the development, plus the fact of traffic management on out of there as regards parking. And I just hope that, you know, when they start developing and work with it, I know district highway, county highways have already said about it, but I do think there's a little bit more that's got to be done within the parking around that area, so that residents aren't parking on that bit of road, which will make it even more congested because it's right near a school as well. So I just hope that that will happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ball. Councillor Gamble.
Sorry, I am going to have to come back to this 2 metres and the adoption issue. I mean, we've already, the developers are here, we're supposed to listen. Can we have an affirmation from the developers that they are listening seriously to this? Because I know it seems a small issue probably to some people, but you know, the maintenance of a road could be quite an expensive process, and I fail to understand really why someone who develops an affordable estate like this hasn't taken this into account, and this was an important issue for them. So will you be taking this on board?
Well, I think we've got that assurance now from the developer, so...
Yeah, is it something that's beyond hope? I don't think hope is a very good word.
And like we say, we try and get it all adopted at highways, for highway standards, so hopefully the developer will take that on board. Anyway, Councillor Ball, Barefoot, should I say?
Sorry, it's me again.
It's all right, don't worry, Sue.
Well, I too go along with what people said. It is a great scheme, and I do welcome these affordable houses, 37 of them, with green credentials, but I am mightily concerned about this issue of adoption. We've not really had an answer about why the footways couldn't be two metres. I just don't understand why we can't get an answer about that. But I won't vote against this, definitely not. But I'm going to find that I think I'm going to have to abstain because I have experience in Matlock and Tansley of unadopted developments. And there is one in Tansley, and it was done by a private developer, so I'm sure, you know, we are responsible officers, and the Housing Association will be very responsible, but what you find is that there won't be any street lights, and, you know, to be honest, why, if the county council don't adopt it, why should they be worried about it? They're not going to be worried about whether they adopt it or not. It's less work. Less to resurface all the rest of it. So, you know, it's as Councillor Gamble said, it's not a small issue. I think we've got. I can't vote for this unless we have concrete evidence that this 2 metres will be done and that Derbyshire County Council will adopt this. Will adopt this development. I've just seen too many problems in my area.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded for approval. So all those in favour, please show. All those against? And all those that want to abstain? 11 for, 2 abstentions. So it's been passed. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what we'll do now. We're coming up to 8 o'clock, so we'll have a 10-minute comfort break. So if you'd like to come back about just after 10 to, that'll be fine, and then we'll reconvene. Right, anyway, members, getting back to the agenda, moving on now. Item 5.2, which is application number 21/00644 full. This is land at Eaton Farmhouse, Main Road, Hull and Ward, Derbyshire. It's erection of 2 numbered detached buildings and 1 numbered detached bungalow. So I have no speakers on it, so we'll go straight to the officer. Andrew.
Yeah, there's no update. Just to make members aware, as you rightly say, it's an application for 2 detached dormer bungalows and a single detached dwelling on land to the east of Eaton Farmhouse. It falls within the settlement boundary of Hull and Ward itself. Access would be via Main Road itself from the southern part of the site into the site there. I suppose a backland development on the back edge of some larger housing schemes to the north. In terms of the detailing, it's very traditional in their appearance. Inclusion of bricked arch, timber porches, timber verges, inset gablets on all of the dwellings bar the bungalow. Plot 1 would introduce a 4-bed, which is to the north. Plot 2 would be a 5-bed, so that's the largest one on the site, and a 3-bed to the south. In terms of the construction, they will include air source heat pumps, mechanical ventilation, heat recovery systems as part of the proposal. Happy to take questions.
Right, members, open to you. Questions? No? Go on, Peter.
I'm not opposed to this application, but they're very large properties, and probably we could have seen more properties on this site. That's the only thing. But is that would that have been possible, Andrew? Yeah.
In terms of the density, I think we're satisfied that 3 sits comfortably. I suppose some smaller units and a large number of units could have been accommodated, but then that potentially could raise concerns of movements to and from the site. So we're satisfied 3 is sufficient in this case.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions, Councillor Donnelly? No? I'm going to move into debate then. Debate. Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm doing this office again just to morning, I'm quite happy to use move officer recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Councillor Fitzherbert.
That, please.
Yeah. Anybody else wishing to take part in debate? No? So it's been moved and seconded that planning permission be granted subject to conditions. All those in favour, please show. I think that's unanimous. So that's unanimous. That's been passed. So anyway, moving swiftly on, application 5.4. Which is application number 21/00151 full, retention of roof-mounted solar panels at 13A Church Street, Ashbourne. I've no speakers on this, so we'll move straight to the officer. John, are you taking this one?
Chair.
Do you want me to do it?
You've got to sit through the rest of this before she gets there. Couldn't we have actually brought this forward?
Well, we could have done, but nobody asked me to. So
Yes, they did. You were asked by Councillor Burfoot before the meeting.
No.
And you said no.
No, I didn't say no.
I was told you said no.
Sorry, we're carrying on with the application, so please. Anyway, John, please carry on.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just get to the photographs of this. You'll see in the body of the report the history of this application. The council were written to by the site owner informing us that solar panels were going to be installed on the roof of this listed building. We wrote back immediately to advise that that would require both planning permission and listed building consent. The panels were installed irrespective of that advice without seeking that permission. We had to then serve enforcement notices. We were getting no cooperation from the applicant. The enforcement notices were not complied with, i.e. the panels were not removed. We've started down the route of prosecution on this. The prosecution has been stayed to give the applicant the chance to retrospectively apply for the solar panels, and we do now have the applications. In terms of how the panels look, see what we've got in terms of images here. It's maybe best to take you to the map on page 53. The view you're looking at there is the view from Vineyard Cottages and the car park. So that's looking in a southeasterly direction from that area in terms of the visibility. So you've got panels on both the lower roof there and also a lesser number of panels on the higher roof. You can see them there from a greater distance. That's from the car parking area. Okay, let's carry on through these. And you also get views across from the northeast, from Coxon's Yard, looking in a southwesterly direction of this roofscape. What's apparent, we didn't go for a site visit because we felt the images were sufficient to give an impression here of the impact of the panels. What's apparent if you go to that area of Ashbourne is the contribution that the roofscape of these properties on the back of Church Street makes to the conservation area. There's a lot of listed buildings, very intricate and varied roofscapes, largely unspoilt by modern interventions. We've done the balancing exercise here once more, Chair. Officers have concluded that in accordance with national guidance, the harm to the heritage assets of both the listed building and the conservation area outweigh the public benefit of the solar energy produced. Just one very quick point on the recommendation, just to put in a correction on the reason for refusal that's put out there. The relevant paragraphs in this last sentence of the MPPF are paragraphs 199 and 202. That reflects the 2021 modifications to the MPPF. Happy to take member questions.
Questions, members? Councillor Fitzherbert.
Thank you, John. Do you think there had been any design that could have been possibly met with your approval? I mean, it's quite an odd design on two separate roofs, with no balance to it.
I think the starting point from our perspective, when we look at trying to incorporate renewable energy into historic buildings, would be to look at the merits of the individual component parts. Now, in part of the original conversation we had with the applicant, they dismissed the possibility of installing solar panels within the garden area. Solar panels physically unattached to the building itself would be the first port of call, and then you'd look at, you know, the prominence and the history of the roofs from there. So we were presented with this as a fait accompli, essentially. I think there might have been an option of looking at the garden. It may have involved the removal of some vegetation, but we were never presented with that as an alternative.
Councillor Slack.
Looking at this, it doesn't offend me, actually, looking at the photographs of the solar panels, but it was in retrospect, so it was wrong to do that. And if they'd had negotiations, we could have probably negotiated solar tiles, which blend into the building, especially on historic and listed buildings. We could use solar tiles, which blend into the roof, and you wouldn't see them apart from the panel. Would be far better than the panels, so that could have been put forward to the applicant probably.
There might have been a range of options that we looked at. I'd just be a little bit wary about the idea of solar panels, because in a sense they're more intrusive in terms of the fabric of the roof, whereas something physically just bolted on that can be removed in the future doesn't have quite the same impact. But yes, we could have looked at options had we had the chance.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Gamble.
Can I just have a bit of clarification on process here? I know obviously we've all talked here about retrospective applications and how we all don't like them. But obviously we are told by officers usually then that we have to look at it on the merits of the case. So is this a case now that we should look at this on the merits and not be considering the fact it's retrospective?
you're quite right, Councillor Gamble. You need to resist any temptation to punish the applicant in this case for doing the works first and applying retrospectively. You're looking solely at the planning merits and the harm to the listed building versus any other benefits that you perceive.
So in each case, can I have a bit more of a discussion? Again, what is the harm by the solar panels?
It's set out in the report. It's harm to the special character of the listed building and harm to the character and appearance of the conservation area in which those listed buildings sit.
But obviously not been given a site visit though, we didn't have an opportunity to appreciate the conservation area. Do you think that would have helped?
I think generally there's enough information for you to reach a judgment on in terms of the papers and the photographs. I mean, if members wanted to defer this item to go on site to fully appreciate it, then you're entitled to request that's the course of action.
Okay, thank you very much. No more down for questions, so I'll move into debate. Councillor Archer.
So obviously there was no site visit, but I know this area well, and I know having spoken in favour of putting solar panels on the listed building earlier, it may seem a bit contradictory for me to now say in this case I agree with officer's recommendation, and not because of the process, but I think to look at it, it looks unbalanced, and I think the key term that was used earlier in the presentation was the roofscape. The character of Ashbourne itself, when you look from certain areas down to that part of town, the roofscape is really important in terms of the character, whereas the one in Wirksworth that we looked at, I know we can't directly compare to, but just to explain the point, was the town centre, there were traffic lights around, etc., etc. This is very different, and it is part of a sort of a classic roofscape view of the town, and they're shiny, they're unbalanced, and they are definitely a blot on the landscape, in my opinion, in this case. So I would agree with officer recommendation that we should not allow these to remain.
Are you happy to move it?
I am, yeah.
Councillor Donnelly.
Well, I agree with what Councillor Archer says, because those of who are local know the area very well. I think, as we also know as locals, that it's reputed to be one of the finest Georgian streets in England. And I think if you actually start putting panels on these buildings, then I think it's the wrong way. Whilst I don't disagree with solar panels, but I think that the way it's been done and everything else, I think it's very disrespectful to the council and the way it's been applied for. So I'm happy to second the application.
Thank you very
refusal.
much. Thank you very much, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Swindle.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to second it as well, and I agree with everything Councillor Archer has said. You always sound a bit hypocritical when you say in one application you support the solar panels, but this is a completely different area, completely different setup. You haven't got the modernisation of the town centre, so I've got a completely different view on it. But also looking at the images, they just look untidy, whereas the previous applicant had them on one roof, and they were supposed to be in quite a neat order. It seems a bit higgledy-piggledy to me, and on two completely different roofs. So yeah, I'm absolutely happy to support the recommendation for refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzherbert.
Well, I hope we don't give too many headaches to our officers on this one by approving the previous one in Wirksworth and turning this one down, as seems to be likely. I did try and visit this morning when I popped into Ashbourne, but obviously from Church Street you can't see anything because they're on top of the roof. And I should have gone round the back onto Bellevue Road and had a bit of a sniff around to have a look at it, because as you know, I am all about listed buildings trying to evolve. But I think I welcome the desire to be more eco-friendly. Of course I do, but I think we have to make a decision on this, and I hope that those viewers watching on YouTube are not too confused by our deliberations tonight. I hope they've seen the thoroughness of our debate and our comments as we go through. But that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fitzherbert. It's been moved and seconded for refusal. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? So it's been refused. Thank you very much. So we're now swiftly moving on to list of building consent. I presume there's be no questions, so I'll move straight into debate. Councillor Swindle.
Chair.
Move. Find a seconder. Councillor Donnelly. Thank you very much. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. All those against? Any abstentions? So that's been refused as well. Thank you very much. So, looking back, item 5.8 has been withdrawn, which was the Enthovens. So we now move on to the creation of vehicle access and parking at Tag Hill, Mathlap. I've got one speaker on this. It's Dr. Anne Phillips, applicant to speak in favour of the application. You have 5 minutes. I'll indicate when you have 30 seconds left.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. Given the consistent opposition of the Highways Authority to this plan, you may wonder at my persistence in pursuing it. It reflects the serious depth of need regarding, 1, the lack of available parking on this section of Church Street, 2, attention to the environmental catastrophe in tune with this Council's policy, and 3, my own undoubted future needs for motorised disability access. These are weighed and presented to you in all the previous and current paperwork you have, alongside the priority attention to highway safety, updated since the last meeting, with further professional advice, including very helpfully from the planning officer, including repositioning the turntable to prevent access by a second car. The site does not allow access room for a large car, let alone a delivery van. The unresolved issues are 1, control of entry. I stress that topography and common sense exert full control over the direction of entry and exit, prohibiting anything other than those being uphill to or from the direction of St Giles Church. 2, questions over turntable maintenance fail to take account of their safety and reliability record. This was not an obstacle to the approval of the installation of a turntable on a driveway on the A6. As with the issue of control, Highways have passed this maintenance issue back for your view. I wonder if Councillor Burfoot's formal request for a site visit to that property was granted. 3, sightlines. These are now drawn on the plans as requested by Highways and are to scale, admittedly not professionally, since their latest responses, it's not been possible to obtain such sightlines on the plan. It is my professional engineer's view, however, that the sightline from a driver's perspective will increase with the lowering of the wall. And the location plan, if you look at it, also shows how the sightline is enhanced beyond 43 metres by the bend in the road downhill towards the A615. Again, I note discrepancies with Highways' response to the Darley Dale application, where a sightline is potentially limited by a neighbour's hedge and a high degree of trust placed on only a written undertaking to ensure its regular cutting. 4, the acute angle of exit gives enhanced visibility downhill from the driver's perspective, which is measured to be less than 2.4 metres back from the edge of the highway without a vehicle protruding onto the highway. Since the Highways officer visited and assessed the site from the roadside, it's clear they did not enter the site itself to verify internally either the sightline or the space available for the turntable, both of which they're querying. They've offered their considered view, and it would have been helpful to have had their own alternative estimate of the achievable sightline as their considered view. No contact was made with me when they visited the site. 5, we've attempted to respond to all these issues by offering a variety of means of both controlling undesirable access and enhancing visibility. With regard to the unacceptability of a mirror, which is our latest suggestion, they are in common use to increase limited sightlines, in one instance nearby on Church Street, in another affixed to a building on the A632 owned by Derbyshire County Council itself. Finally, in addition to my own stated needs, I do ask you to take into account the full context of challenges of parking on historic Church Street. Vehicles legitimately park on common land to the north side of the street, where the sightlines in both directions are normally less than 43 metres. From there, where I park my car normally, I cannot manoeuvre it onto the highway without potentially causing traffic obstruction. The same is true of the majority of parking facilities on this section of Church Street. By contrast, I submit that my proposal offers a required degree of safety and does not conflict with Policy S3 of the adopted Derbyshire Dales Local Plan 2017. So once again, I ask you to evaluate all the evidence presented, including the discrepancies between Highways' evaluation of this proposal and that of the comparable and approved Darley-Dale application, and reconsider this proposal within its full location and needs-specific context. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very succinct. So there's a bit of late representation, so I'll let you read that first. I believe it's from the Highways Authority. Who's taking this one? Okay, members. Okay, over to you, John.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Members had the benefit of a previous site visit to this particular site and obviously deferred the item to get some further clarity on the comments that are made by the Highway Authority. You'll see from the officer recommendation that their view on this particular, the merits of this from a highway safety viewpoint haven't fundamentally changed. They remain seriously concerned about the acute angled nature of the access in terms of somebody coming out of that driveway and the difficulty of practically seeing to the right down the hill and the potential that poses to highway safety. Just images of the access looking front on. Don't particularly tell a truthful picture of how the site lies. That one is a better picture in terms of giving you a feel for how the property arranges itself against the highway and the acute nature of the angle that you would be coming out at. Okay. You'll see also in the highway comments that there's a residual concern about future maintenance of a turntable and its reliability. That's not to say that the Highway Authority are suggesting that a turntable cannot work or that it won't be maintained, but the consequence of it being out of action for a period of time on this particular site would be quite severe should anybody need to reverse out of this particular access if it fails for whatever reason. So happy to take member questions, Chair.
Councillor Gamble.
Just on the this that if the maintenance fails, I'm just thinking. I'm just asking you because I don't know a lot about how these are designed. But I would have thought a sensible part of the design would be for you to be able to manually move the turntable should the automatic mechanism fail. Does it have that?
I think that's possible. I suppose the worry in the background would be, if you had an extreme weather event and for whatever reason an element of the turntable got silted up or something, you might find that it was jammed up. I'm not suggesting for one moment that would happen, but I think that's the residual concern, that you can't guarantee that it'll always be functioning.
Okay, Councillor Slack.
No, sorry, I did have another question. Looking at the photograph, looking at this, I'm just. What would be the position if the lady, I'm not suggesting she does for a minute, but actually demolished that wall, built a trying to think of my words now, but parked her car on that. Like, was there anything stopping her doing that?
it's a classified road, so she would need planning permission both in respect of that to form the access, but also there'd be an engineering operation involved because of the change in levels. And you physically cannot turn a vehicle around without the aid of a turntable because it's a narrow triangle of land. So that would be more hazardous.
Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking, that the turntable would be a far more preferable option to that.
Yeah. Councillor Slack.
I do feel sorry for the applicant. She's gone to a lot of trouble to try and get a car on this property. But unfortunately, highways, I've got a point in a way that it's the access. I don't think for a start, I don't think the turntable was a problem because it could be worked manually if electrical or mechanically broke down. But the access onto the road and that it is a tight little place there. The cars come up and if a big van comes up, it's blocked up. It is a very tight little place. So I'm afraid the highways, I've got it right, really, and I do feel sorry for the applicant because she's gone to a lot of trouble to try and solve this problem. But I think we've got to support the highways.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Nobody down for question. Do you want question or debate, Councillor Barefoot?
Clarification.
Okay.
I did tell the monitoring officer that I'm not actually the ward member for where this house is. And I did ask for a site visit to the one at Darley-Dale. I did ask for that. I didn't get an answer on that one.
Can I just clarify, Chair? I mean, we offered members the opportunity to go and look at the turntable at Darley-Dale as part of the site visit procedure on Monday. My understanding is that, members didn't want to go there as a group, although I don't know whether any went individually. The circumstances at Darley-Dale, whilst comparable in terms of it being a functioning turntable, aren't the same in terms of the geometry of the access. So you would learn something from that if you didn't know how a turntable worked, but beyond that, it wouldn't be particularly informative.
Is that all right, Sue?
Yeah, that's fine.
Right, in which case, then I'll move into debate. Go on then, Sue.
Thank you for that. I don't actually think the issue of the turntable is a huge issue, actually, to be honest. I mean, I've got every sympathy for the applicant on this one and what she wants to do, but you know, Derbyshire County Council highways are adamant that this is not in the interests of highway safety, and it's difficult to go against that. And I think also we have to remember that I'm sure the applicant would do everything in the correct way, but we have to consider, am I right, it's the property that gets the permission and not the applicant. So we can't be certain what would happen if a new occupant took over. So it is all about the highway safety, although I've got every sympathy for what she wants to do.
Okay. Councillor Butler.
I'd just like to say that congratulate her on her attempt to find somewhere to charge an electric car. And I'm very regretful that I'm not going to be able to support her. And if I was her, I'd want to do the same. And I'd also be very frustrated and annoyed by it.
So are you willing to move it?
Yes, I will.
Is that a find a seconder? Councillor Fitzherbert.
I applaud the applicant in her efforts to try and solve this conundrum here. But I think we haven't gone against highways before, I recall, and I don't see how we can this time, I'm afraid, with sympathy.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded as set out in the report for refusal. All those who show? All those against? Any abstentions? So, unfortunately, it's been refused. Thank you very much. So now we just get on to a little bit of housekeeping. Item 6, It's just for noting. I move. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. And last but not least, it's item 7, which is appeals. John, any comment?
Just for members' information, if you haven't had the chance to have a look at the appeal decisions, one of the appeal decisions relates to a field adjacent to Oldfield Lane, Warren Carr, and it deals with the issue of sustainable tourism, something you debated at length earlier in the evening, but perhaps it might help members if they get to see how an inspector's assessed that without with being truly objective about it, without a connection to the area.
Thank you, John. So that just needs moving for noting, so I'll move it. Okay, all those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Anyway, thank you very much for your forbearance, and we'll see you next time at the Planning Committee. Thank you very much.